Lane Smith, PRT 266, Intro to Sports Management, Managerial interview. I'm here with one of my former coaches, Mr. David Whaley from South Lenoir High School. Mr. Whaley, you mind if I ask you a few questions?
It'll be great. Looking forward to it.
All right. First question I got for you is, how long have you been coaching?
This is my 26th year of coaching high school sports and middle school sports.
What sports did you coach all throughout?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Football, volleyball, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, and golf. Those are the ones I've coached throughout the years.
Wow. When did you decide you wanted to be a coach?
I would say, to be honest with you, I wanted to be a coach when I was in high school. I had several coaches that impacted my life. But when I knew I was going to be a coach is when I got my first teaching job. They said, you will get your bus license and you will coach. So I knew at that point in time that I would be a sports coach at a school level.
Mm-hmm. Did you play any sports in high school or at the collegiate level?
I played sports in high school. I played basketball for 2 years, and then baseball and football I played for 4. When I went to school in the 80s at East Duplin High School, we didn't have that many sports as children do now.
Yes, sir. So
we didn't have the option to play as many different sports. We didn't even have soccer at East Duplin at the time. So that being said, kind of you specialized in 2 most of the time, and I did football and baseball were the 2 I really specialized in for 4 years.
I guess that answers my next question. Where and what did you play? You played at East Duplin.
That's correct.
Who was your biggest inspiration to become a coach?
I had a coach in high school named Jerry Thigpen. He's still alive, doing well. Jerry Thigpen was a guy that he kept a lot of us guys out of trouble. Whenever the summertime and we had tobacco, and then I forgot off tobacco, and at that time, my first 2 years of high school, there was no football practice until August.
Yes, sir.
No one did. No one cared. Jerry Thigpen would get us together and have baseball workouts with us during the summer at night at the high school to keep us kind of reporting back to him to make sure we were not getting in too much trouble over the summer break.
Yes, sir. What are some of the traits you need to be a successful coach?
I'll tell you, let's see, I'll think of 3. Number 1 is you've got to be a great communicator, because you're going to communicate with the students, the parents, the staff, assistant coaches, teachers at the school. It's a communication all the time. I think that's one of the most important. Organization is most definitely important. So that way when you start on time, you finish on time. That's what you're supposed to do. And last is you got to love the kids. Mm-hmm. If you don't love the kids, your knowledge of the game, all that stuff does not matter if you don't do those first 3, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. What are some of the downsides to coaching at the high school level?
At the high school level now, you have so many parents. And I know parents are also a very good positive, but parents that watch YouTube videos, that know so much about all these competitive AAU teams where they feel their child is a Division I athlete, when you as a coach know kids have come through, the ones that made it to Division I and the ones that are not genetically or physically able to make it. Mm-hmm. But even a substitute on a 2A high school team in Eastern North Carolina, their parents think they're NFL bound or they're MLS bound or whatever. And that's kind of the toughest thing I've had to deal with, try to explain to parents, don't put so much pressure on the kids to be a Division I athlete when I already know genetically that's probably not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. One way to be an effective coach is discipline, of course. How do you keep your players in line?
Let's see, probably the best way I try to do is I try to develop a leadership team on the team. Mm-hmm. And this year at school here in this fall semester, and now the spring, I'm coaching soccer for the first time at South Lenoir High School. And what I've tried to do with them is I've tried to take the seniors and tell them it's their team, which it is, and that they make all the decisions, where we eat at, what we wear before the games, and so forth. But I tell them that they are the ones that the players have to answer to. So by using that peer pressure, they kind of take ownership and keep the other ones in line. But also the kids know that if they're not in line, they're off the team.
Yes, sir. In your opinion, what makes a good coach?
Oh, man, a good coach. I don't think wins and losses makes a good coach. We always say keep it simple. KISS is the method. Keep it simple as you can, I guess. I won't use every word that has been used in the past, but I try to keep the game simple and fun. So an effective coach is one that you're going to have kids for 3.5 to 4 months playing a sport, practicing 5 days a week. You're going to be with them as much as their parents are. If you can't keep it fun, you'll lose their interest, and therefore you'll lose your team. So that's a big factor.
How do you demand respect as a coach?
To demand respect as a coach, I've always done this way. I don't have team rules, which is something I've done in a long time. I have standards, and I explained to them, I said, everyone's different. I can't treat all of you the same because we're different people. So therefore, if I make rules, some people have to break those rules by their home situation. Therefore, they're off the team. I don't do that. I do standards. I just tell them, you do what you're supposed to do and do the best that you're supposed to do, and always respect your name, your family's name, and the school's name.
Yes, sir.
And by doing that, I feel like instead of making rules to break, I make standards to live up to.
Yes, sir. What are some of the benefits of coaching a high school team?
I think the biggest thing about coaching high school sports is you see the growth from a freshman to a senior. I use soccer as an example. You get a young lady in soccer as a freshman who's never played before. She can't kick it 10 yards, doesn't know where it's going, kicks with her toe. And then by the time she becomes a senior, she's your team leader. She's training the younger kids with you how to play. To see that growth not only on the field but maturity, to see them head out to college, to become a man and a woman. That's just a wonderful thing.
In your opinion, what do you think makes a sport program at the high school level successful?
Oh, let's see. Well, as far as social status would be wins and losses. I would say at a local high school level, a successful team for me would be one that improves throughout the year. But also, in basketball here at South Lenoir, we have an alumni game. Place is packed. When I say packed, of not fans, but of former players that come back just to still be a part of the program. It's the legacy of the program. To me, a successful program is when someone graduated 15 years ago, but yet they come back to see how the team is doing, to support the team, to pull for the team. I don't think it's always wins and losses. I think it's a lot to do with support of the community and of former players especially.
Yes, sir. Being a coach, you need to make connections with your players. How do you do that?
This day and time, it seems like social media is the way you make connections by more, but with the political status or the dangers for coaches being on social media, you have to figure out other ways. So what I've always tried to do is to find out some of their interests. With the boys' soccer team this year, a lot of them played FIFA on Xbox One. So you have to talk about FIFA games on Xbox One. You better keep up with the European League's soccer, with the Mexican League soccer. You try to know what their interests are outside of school and make that relation with them to make them know that you know them and you care about them. And it's really, really hard with that social media now because you don't want to have players following you or you following them on social media. It's not good for your job, that is.
Mm-hmm. How do you motivate your players?
I think that goes back a little bit more to, let's see, I'd say back to that peer pressure. We all have pressure on us everywhere in life, and kids have peer pressure throughout school, but it's a positive peer pressure. I have told the seniors, and I tell the players, at any point in time someone messes up on the field, no one feels more upset or more embarrassed than the player that struck out at the plate. So no team members ever should down that player. Mm-hmm. The coach is going to coach that player. The other teammates build that player up. That builds the camaraderie of the team, and therefore, as me as a coach, it makes us as a team perform better, I feel. They become a tighter-knit group.
Do you need any heightened education to be a coach? Associate degree, bachelor's, master's, graduate, so on and so forth?
I would say if you're talking school, or you're talking high school,
Yes,
anywhere.
sir, high school.
High school, you have to have your BS degree, of course, to have your teaching license. But besides that, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association has online classes that they like for us to take to become certified coaches. And most everyone does. You have to take CPR and so forth. Mm-hmm. But if you're asking me what makes a successful coach, if you have a master's degree in education, does that make you a better coach? The answer is no. Now, organization and knowledge is good, but I'll tell you, to me, what makes a great coach: experience, because you learn from the best and you learn from the worst. Another thing to me that makes a great coach is the love of the game and the students. I don't care if you have a master's degree or not. If you have love of the game, love of your players, and have their interests at your heart and at your mind, you'll be successful at whatever you do.
Does the level of your education really correlate to coaching? I think you just answered that very well.
No, again, as someone with an administrative degree that could run a school can most definitely run a practice. I mean, that goes hand in hand, I guess.
Now, personally, would you recommend being a coach for a high school team?
Yes, I would, but I would always advise anyone to make sure that you know it's not all about the X's and O's. You're dealing with the players and you're dealing with their parents.
Yes, sir.
You got to be able to deal with the community.
If so, what advice would you give to a new coach?
I would say as soon as I got a job as a soccer coach at a high school team, as a varsity coach, I would contact as many coaches as I could find that know what they're doing, I'll say. My grandfather always said, it's bad when you don't know that you don't know. Mm-hmm. So I would call and try to find coaches in the area that would be willing to help me as far as conditioning, organizing practices, drills, what I need to teach them. And you will find out that 90% to 95% of the coaches will give you everything they've got to help you out because they were in your shoes at one time.
And the last question I have for you, Mr. Whaley, is simply, do you like being a coach? Do you love what you do?
Absolutely love it. Again, there are parts that gets on your nerves, but in the end, to see young men and women grow up to be adults right before your eyes over a 4-year span, can't beat it. Love it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Whaley.
Thank you, Lane.